Hello everyone. You've got an interesting assignment to do this week that has you creating 4 pictograms based on some images that you were provided with. So I'd like to go over some steps on how to do that. I know that you were provided with a video tutorial on how to accomplish that, and I'd like to add to it and show you alternative methods. So what I'm going to do is click on this assignment here. So let me click on the template here and show you what we have here to work with. I simply brought an image over. It's already set up in my template. Let me bring up my layers panel by hitting F7, and I have this on its own layer. Okay, so I have the template on its own layer. It's locked, and on a new layer I have the image brought in. Here's what I'm going to do. I want to show you a method of tracing this image using the pen tool and working with a template. Okay, so before we even continue, let me just show you the advantage of that. So if we look at this image in preview mode, in outline mode, everything disappears and you see the skeleton view. So we go back to preview or Command or Control Y for the shortcut. And what I'm going to do is create a template out of this. So I do that by double clicking on the layer that the image is on, all right, not the layer name, but the layer itself. And you'll have a dialog box that comes up that gives you the option of creating a template. So if I check template, it's telling me that the images will dim to 50%, which is fine. So that means the images, once I hit OK, dim out to be 50%. The layer automatically gets locked, and you see a new icon here. Instead of a visibility icon, it's a template icon. So this is an uneditable layer. So if you see the cursor here, you'll see that you have the little slash, meaning that there's nothing you can do with this layer as it is. I'm going to create a new layer and use that layer to draw on. So what I'm going to do is this: go to the pen tool, and note that I simply have in my fill here, it's filled with blue. So if I click, and start creating a shape, it's filling with blue. All right. So what I could do is have the fill set to none, and then I'd be able to see my pen tool shape and edit it accordingly. So that's one method, but the other method is what I'm used to, which is creating a template and then tracing over that template. I'm going to make sure that my new layer is active, and I'm going to actually go to outline mode now. So Control or Command Y, and notice that the advantage to having a template is that you can now see the image in outline mode, which allows you to create a shape even if you have a fill and a stroke, but you don't see the fill or the stroke. You only see the shape of the path. So that's the advantage. All right, so what I'm going to do is zoom in and show you how I would do this. So with the pen tool active, okay, I'm going to start clicking around the shape. Okay, so I'm simply going to click, and just randomly click, following the edge of the shape that I want to trace. I'm kind of doing random clicks here, and basically what you want to do is have an anchor point, which is what these are. You want to have an anchor point in a location where the shape changes direction. Okay, that's basically where these get placed. Okay, so it's there's a lot of small nuances to that, but that's basically all right. I'm not stressing out over making this perfectly accurate, and what you want to do is go back to the original origin point, and the goal is to create a closed path. All right, you don't want to have any breaks in between here. So what you do is you hover your cursor over your original anchor point, and as soon as you see that small circle, click. Now you will have a closed path. All right, so the next step is you want to edit this shape. You don't want to have all these sharp faceted angles. Okay, you want to round off these edges here. You have a lot of round organic shapes in here. So I'm going to zoom in a little further. I'm hitting my Control and Spacebar key to get access to the zoom tool. If you're on the Mac, it's the Command and Spacebar. All right, and what I'm going to do is hover my cursor. So I'm going to press my cursor over the pen tool, and down below you'll see 4 different additional tools. So I'm going to select the anchor point tool, and then what I'm going to do is start to round out these shapes here. So I'm going to take this tool and hover above the anchor point, and I'm going to press my cursor and click and pull to the right a little bit. So remember, you're always pulling in a clockwise direction because you created this in a clockwise direction. All right, so every anchor point you're going to click and pull down and drag a little bit and just try to mold it to that shape basically. So again, this is nothing that you have to stress out about because you're going to go back in and edit the position of these shapes and these handles. So I'm just simply clicking and dragging and removing that angled shape that you have there. All right, so now while doing this, you may want to reposition an anchor point, and here's how to do that. You could go back up to the direct selection tool, click, and then go over and move it. So direct selection tool is the tool of choice that you'd use to move a single anchor point. Okay, it's the direct selection tool. It's named that appropriately because it directly selects an anchor point and allows you to move it. So what I want to show you is the shortcut for that to save you a little bit of time. What you would do is hold down the Control or Command key. Now notice what's happening. It's giving me a tool I do not want. What you want is the wide arrow or the direct selection tool. The black arrow is the selection tool and it will allow you to move the entire shape, not an individual anchor point. So what you would do is set up the default for that, which is clicking on the white arrow and then going back to the tool in the pen tool area. Then when you depress your Control or Command key, you'll get access to the white arrow, which allows you to go in and click carefully on an anchor point and allows you to move that. All right, so the direct selection tool allows you to do two things. It allows you to move anchor points and move handles. Okay, so the handles, of course, pulling these handles in and out and angling them allows you to conform that path to the shape that you're tracing. All right, so you may want to go in there. It doesn't matter when you do that, but you may want to go in there and do it as you go along. I'm going to let go with my Control key and continue to drag and create my shapes. So there may be a point in here where you want to, perhaps there's not enough anchor points. All you need to do is hover your cursor while you're in the pen tool, go back to the pen tool, and hover your cursor on the path itself. Once you see that little plus sign, that's your cue to click, and you will have added an anchor point. If you want to reposition it, you're holding down the Control key and moving it. Okay? So this is a rather frazzling tool to work with when you start out, but I can tell you that the more you practice with it, the more experience you'll get with it, like anything, and it will get to a point where you will actually start to enjoy it. Okay, so you're simply going to click and drag, reposition, and let's just say you have an anchor point that you don't want anymore. Okay, you find yourself with too many anchor points, and there is such a thing as too many anchor points. Okay, with an anchor point selected, if I hit delete, what's going to happen is that it's going to break the path, and you don't want that. So let me undo that. So what you would do is simply hover your cursor over the anchor point itself, and you'll see a minus sign. That means when you click, you will have subtracted that anchor point. Another shortcut for you is while you're in the pen tool, if you hold down your Alt or Option key, you'll get access to the anchor point tool. All right, so there's two shortcuts that you can remember here. Okay, the Control key, once you have the default set up here, the Control key gives you access to the direct selection tool, which allows you to move anchor points and move handles. All right, so once you see a handle, click and drag. Keep in mind that to get access to those handles, you have to be in the anchor point tool. So again, holding down the Alt or Option key and clicking and pulling those handles out gives you access to those anchor points. I'm sorry, those handles. All right, so just keep that in mind. Now, you may do something like I just did. I missed the anchor point and all of a sudden things go crazy here. Okay, just undo that step, Control Z or Command Z, go back in, Alt key held down, click and pull in a clockwise direction. Okay? All right, so that's the basic gist of this. So let's just leave this as is, and let me hit Control 0 to fit the document in the window, and hit Control Y. So we see that we have a shape here that's been created, and what I want to do is add that negative space. So there's a negative space in here that will help define the diver. So what I'm going to do is go in here with my pen tool again and click, 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 just to create that negative space in here. Okay? What we want to do is cut a hole through the swimmer. Okay? So what that means is this. I'm going to select both shapes and then go to Object, Compound Path, Make. So what that did was it cut a hole through that, and I'm able to see the sky in the background, for example. And that's how you do that. So now that I have that done, what we want to do is remove the stroke. So I'm going to bring the stroke forward, click None, and then we're going to create the rounded rectangle that these will go in. So you would go to the rounded rectangle tool, and the default rounded rectangle shape gives you the shape that you'd need for this. So you don't have to mess with that. All right, so let me just click on the default white fill black stroke. Now note that you may want to edit the roundness of this. Okay, so let me show you where to get access to that. It's under Preferences. So you go to Edit Preferences, General, or Control or Command K, and the preferences for the roundness of a rectangle is right here in the corner radius. Okay, Edit Preferences, General. There's another method of doing this which allows you to preview that beforehand. So I'm going to go to the rectangle tool, click and drag, create a rectangle. Then I'm going to go to Effect, Stylize, Round Corners. And then with my preview button checked, I'm going to click on the up button for the radius, and you can see a roundness starting to occur. So you can control it quickly in that way. All right, so that's another method for you. All right, so either way is fine. This shape is on top of this underlying diver. So we want to rearrange it. So I'm going to go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back. Okay, so we can't see the swimmer here. Now what we're going to do is fill this rounded rectangle with a color. So you could bring up your swatches palette and then select a color for the fill. All right, we're going to have no stroke. Bring the fill forward, select a color, and there we go. All right, so just center your pictogram accordingly, and you're good. All right, so now what you want to do is be efficient here. So let me zoom back out, Control 0. I'm going to select my shapes here. I'll bring them up in position. So now what we're going to do is we'll duplicate this, and there's a very simple way of doing that. I'm going to select my rounded rectangle, click and start dragging to the right. As I'm dragging, I'm holding down Shift to constrain or slide my rounded rectangle horizontally, and then I'm going to hold down my Alt or Option key to duplicate it. All right, so my Shift and Alt key is held down. When I'm happy with the position, I'm going to let go with my cursor first. Okay, so essentially you want to take advantage of the duplication process of the computer. Okay, so now I'll select both of these, just the rectangles, click, start dragging down, hold down Slide to constrain vertically, and Alt to duplicate. When it's in position, I'm going to let go with my cursor first, and we now have our shapes in position. And then simply go in there individually and change the colors to whatever you'd like. And you're good to go. All right, so I hope that helped. All right, guys, take care. Bye.